Where does the name come from, Social Cig?
Yes. Back in college, probably around like 2019 for me, I had just moved into a house with a great group of dudes, and we all like smoked vapes and all that, and we got these cigarette filters and bags of tobacco, and we had them in the closet in the living room. And every time we would have people over, we would stuff these filters with tobacco and smoke them. We called them social cigarettes. And we were like, oh, they're just socially, like we don't actually smoke cigarettes, but I don't know, it's kind of the bit.
Yeah.
And so we would always just smoke those and roll them. And the rule in the house was you couldn't smoke them unless it was with like another person. It was a social thing. And then so that happened, and then I was going under a different name for a long time. I was going under Arcilla Kid, and I just didn't love because I love being an individual, but underneath like a name that isn't associated. Like I didn't want someone to see me on the street and be like, "Yo, Arcilla Kid," but people do that with Social Cig now, which I like, but it fits more.
Yeah.
And I was at work one day, and my friend Ryan, she saw a show at Summerfest, and she's like, "Oh my God, I had the craziest night. I smoked a Social Cig with Young the Giant." And I was like, whoa. And at that moment, I was still kind of trying to just constantly find that right name for the brand, myself, my music, and everything I wanted to do, and maybe eventually a podcast. And it just checked all the boxes. And I immediately went to Instagram, and I was like, is this available? Is this available? And then just like seeing like Spotify, like if there's any band.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it stuck.
Similar situation with me where like
I was going to ask.
I was like the whole genesis of M.A.G.S per se was like I was in another band in Buffalo that ended like pretty abruptly, and I had just like all this like pent up like frustration about how that project ended, and so I was like, well, I'm just gonna do everything myself, you know. And I was trying to think of like a band name or like a moniker or whatever, and like it's like a long story about how I actually came up with the name, but like the short version is basically like, I think I said it earlier, my grandma's name is Maggie. And she was at my parents' house, and I was there. My mom was having like a party of some kind. And I remember my ex was there as well. And one of the things that we had talked about was like, you know, if we ever had kids, like we both like the name Maggie, you know what I mean? So and she was there, and I was like feeling weird about her being there. Talked to my grandma, kind of had this like epiphany of like, oh, you know, the other thing was that there was a friend I knew from church who had a sister who was named Maggie, and she would call her Mags as a nickname. So I just had this like moment of like universal alignment, you know, and I was like, Mags, that's it. So I remember calling my friend Mike at the label, and I was like, the name is M.A.G.S. He's like, cool. A few days later, he hits me up and he's like, yo, actually there's another artist named M.A.G.S on Spotify. So if like you just do it the same way that their spelling is, it's going to, all of your albums and stuff are going to be under her like name.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, well, that sucks. He's like, well, you could change the spelling. You could do it with a Z or like 2 G's. I'm like, that's a terrible idea. Right. So I remember being in the shower. I come up with my best ideas in the shower. But I was in the shower and I was like, what if it was like Pharrell's band, like NERD, you know? Like what if it was like M.A.G.S, like with periods and stuff? And when I got out of the shower, I called him and I was like, okay, it's still M.A.G.S, same spelling, just with like periods, like it's an acronym.
Yep.
And he's like, cool, what does it stand for? I'm like, I literally made it up on the spot. I was like, marijuana and good sex. And he's like, I was like, cool, okay. And and then just from that point, it stuck. I didn't really like advertise it as that for a long time. Just, it was a joke. And I also, at the time, I didn't smoke weed. And it was just kind of like an inside joke to myself, really. But I guess recently, you know, in probably the last few years, like I get asked that a lot, and I don't always feel like telling the whole grandma story, you know. So like a quick answer is it's marijuana and good sex, you know. You know, and then even like putting it on clothes, like I have like a red pullover like a merch item that just says like M.A.G.S. like in like a college kind of font.
Yeah.
And so like people wear it, and they always tweet at me, and they're like my grandma. When I was at a wedding, my grandma asked me what it meant, and I didn't want to tell her. I guess you wouldn't wear that to a wedding, but you know, just like a family event. My grandma's asking me what M.A.G.S. stands for. It's like, Grandma,
it's a band.
It's a band. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sweet. The origin stories of band names are always so interesting. I was wondering that myself, though, where the periods came in. Was it always all capitals when it was just M.A.G.S?
No Originally, periods? I wanted it to just be all lowercase, actually. You know, but it just, I don't know, like it just got too complicated, and I thought just adding the periods, like it is a little like tricky to like put it in on Google. It's like you gotta like, you know, whatever. But like, yeah, it's stuck, and I like it, and a lot of people now, because my Instagram name is Elliot M.A.G.S, like they just think that's my last name.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not like
yeah.
It's totally not. But it is like a catchy stage name, you know, like
totally.
Because like you know how like at a time when you know you'd be on like MySpace or whatever, and you would just like make your name like your username like your first name and then like whatever bands you were in. You know, or like,
see, I'm past the MySpace era. I never had a MySpace.
Okay. You didn't, I wouldn't say that you didn't miss anything. But I also kind of missed it. I was like right at the tail end.
Okay.
Of it. But I remember seeing a lot of like dudes who were in bands, their own personal MySpaces were just like, you know, Greg and then like whatever their band was. So I kind of just did that on Instagram, and I just made it Elliot M.A.G.S. And then yeah, people just started thinking that was my name.
Right. I mean, it's a cool name too, Elliot M.A.G.S.
It works. It definitely rolls off the tongue. But it was more of like a given name than one I like chose for myself. But it also makes it so that people can't really like find much information about me personally, which
that's true. Yep.
Pretty nice.